Okay, judge ready? Opponent ready? So I'm gonna time myself. 4 minutes start from now. Good afternoon, honorable judges. We affirm we rely uniqueness from the holistic cost and benefits analysis observation. We observe that we live in the middle of an information explosion. According to IBM, each day 100 quintillion bytes of data is created on the internet. Consequently, the abundance of products information available online makes it harder for users to choose the one best fits your taste and needs, thus increasing the search cost per fit. Condition 1, collaborative filtering is an automatic prediction technique commonly used to build personalized recommendations on platforms by compiling preferences from other people based on users' behavioral information. Privacy is not so much at the risk as search engines commit to protect privacy in the process, but heavily invest into information security. They give us a way to deal with the overwhelming amount of information and help people stay informed. Impact 8, break down values for both company and individuals. On a company scale, McKinsey Institute suggests that organizations that are using their consumer behavior insights strategically are outperforming their peers by 85% in sales growth margins. On an individual scale, an estimate 2017 shows that search engines bring a median value of $75.5 thousand per year to each individual by improving users' decision quality. Impact B, increase satisfaction and enhance democracy. Content-based filtering mechanisms which rely on metadata tend to recommend users very similar to items they already like, which could lead to filter bubble. By contrast, collaborative filtering is based on real-life activity, allowing it to make connection between seemingly disparate items that might be relevant to the users. A research done by UPN also indicated that it could increase individual consumption diversity, help consumers explore new products, and directly led to an increase in consumer satisfaction by 30% higher than non-recommended contents. According to Bass, the mechanism allows you to wait in a recommended article, answer a question it poses, offering new information, or challenge the assumption it makes. As more and more comments appear next to the article, they become a rich and textual record of diverse perspective participants, thus enhance the functioning of democratic society. Condition 2, healthcare technology companies serve as a quality improvement platform to enhance healthcare system. Subway 8, according to ONC, a clinical decision support system which 74% of hospitals adopted is a technology system which provides doctors and patients knowledge and person-specific treatment. Intelligently filtered or presented appropriate times based on the input of electronic health record, which includes basic personal information and health condition information. Impact 8, reduced medical errors. A study led by David Best demonstrated that a combined result of CDS system and CDOE, which are form of patient management software that promotes accuracy and efficiency of transfer medical information. It's a reduced medical error rate by 55%, and the rate of serious medication error fell by 88%. That translates to a prevention of 3 million adverse drug events each year in the U.S. hospital. Impact B, increased efficiency and save resources. With the help of CDS pre-blood test warnings, the proportion of unnecessary repeated tests is significantly reduced. Harvard University United Healthwide County Medical Center, combining a CDS system with genetic testing data, could reduce hospital readmission rate by 52% and produce an estimated cost saving of more than $4,300 per capita. Impact C, save human lives. A hospital in Alabama decreased its sepsis mortality rate by 53% after implementing a computerized monitor system conducted by healthcare technology companies. Readiness helped to implement a sepsis screenings program, which decreased mortality rate by 30%, which led to a life saved per month. Research found a 90% increase in the use of anticoagulation prophylaxis when using computer alert analysis, and this translates into a 41% reduced rate of deep thrombosis after implementation of computer reminders. B, pandemics, a close contact detector platform, which was launched in February by state-owned tech company CETC, which could enable people to check whether they work, live, or travel with a person suspected to have coronavirus within 2 weeks. Until February the 17th, the system had received 1,500 million searches and found 80,000 people who had been in contact with suspected confirmed patients. Then the report is sent to the government, public health clients, airlines, and frontline hospital in order to enforce quarantines. Impact, quarantine infected people and prevent the further spread of disease could save millions of human lives. For all of these reasons, we vote for pro. Thank you.
So is everyone ready?
Yes.
If so, my time will start now. Far-right extremist groups in the West rig out. Sorry, can I restart? I read the wrong part in my constructive. Is everyone ready again? And the time starts now. The debate should be judged on cost-benefit analysis. However, we also focus on dehumanization. Dehumanization is a process of deriving a group from human qualities. According to Joe Fegan, research professor of sociology at the University of Florida, racial discrimination is the ultimate form of dehumanization. According to Montague and Masson, esteemed scientists and professors at the University of Hawaii, the extent of this destructive totals are greater than that of any war, plague, famine, or natural calamity on record, as the potential damage to the quality of human life and the fabric of civilized society is beyond calculation. Therefore, it has the greatest impact in the debate, which is why it should be prioritized. Hence, the judge should vote for whichever team that best strengthens dehumanization. We define personal data in accordance with GDPR as any information that can be related to an identifiable natural person. This means that data used to train algorithms as well as data collected by social media are in the scope of this debate. Our only contention is digital nationalism. According to Wong at the City University of Hong Kong, personalized recommendation requires the collection of users' personal data, and according to the College of Communication, personalizing content creates filter bubbles which algorithms amplify ideological segregation. This is sufficient for radicalization and extremism, which leads to dehumanization. Sub 1A, white nationalism. Far-right extremist groups in the West rig algorithms in their favor to spread manipulative content. According to Wild 2018, the far-right are using fake accounts to rig YouTube's algorithm in their favor, such as European alt-right group Reconquista Germanica boosts visibility of the preferred videos. And according to Lepovsky 2019, the sudden sophistication of these networks makes them weapons of mass destruction for democracy. It cannot be stopped by these platforms, so there is no political pressure to do so. According to Tiku 2019, only 3 white nationalist accounts were suspended. Flagrant but least terrorist conduct by white supremacists is a business decision molded by political pressure and not illegal restraint. Racism caused by Facebook is a strong comparator to systematic dehumanization. It's another vegan evidence from 2019. Racial discrimination is the ultimate form of dehumanization, but more importantly, according to Saitanath, University of Zurich International Center of Economics and Society, social capital played an important role in the Nazi parties gaining control of such a powerful force. Social media now could very well lead to modern alt-right groups to reconsider Germanic or alternative for Deutschland, getting ground in Germany. As geometry has shown, this has disastrous consequences. Subpoint B, Sinhala nationalism. Sinhala nationalist groups in Sri Lanka employ similar tactics. According to Holger's, a researcher at the University of Gothenburg in 2018, social media is a rapid censorship-resistant means of studying modern Sinhala nationalism. In a report released in 2016, the CPA highlighted Facebook groups today in the general election being reappropriated for poverty propaganda couching hate speech, a new development in Sri Lankan social media and politics. Media literacy is generally poor in Sri Lanka. The shift to online newscasting is increasing citizens' chances to access information. Social media outlets and parasocial relationships they imply are to blame. According to Katie Cook in 2020, an internationally recognized expert on technology and ethics, important parasocial influencer MS Wernsey shared thousands of followers on Facebook, which were reported but never taken down. Over the next 3 days, mobs descended on several towns, burning mosques, Muslim-owned shops, and homes. According to Hannah Two from the CPA in 2018, again, evidence of algorithm influence operations through the Boston RBC in Sri Lanka. Over 200,000 tweets as well as 4,000 bots have been used by these nationalists to spread their hate speech. Impact. According to Hannah Two from the CPA, again, social media platforms created a channel to incite hate and violence against Muslims in Ghana Kandi. This is a manifestation of the creation of the Sinhala ethnic state, which is the ultimate form of dehumanization, as our freaking evidence will tell you. Subpoint C, Rakhine nationalism. Rakhine nationalism in Myanmar uses social media recommendation algorithms in order to spread hateful content to declare Rohingya Muslims. According to Francois Jake, CWTIM program for the UN, Facebook has played a determining role in shaping the situation in Myanmar. For young people in particular, Facebook is their main source of information. It's because it's problematic when an in-group is attempting to antagonize out-group audiences are more likely to trust their friends from social media. Parasocial relationships can enhance these views as it is derivative from the recommendation algorithms of social media. An example of this is Ashin Wiratu and Buddhist extremist group Mapata, which use a large audience online to spread a hateful content that their viewers buy. This is specifically problematic since Facebook is used as a primary source for Muslims. According to Ashley Kinsett, who international rights and humanitarian law at Columbia Law School, more than 18 million citizens consider it the only interpreter for information. Facebook is arguably the only source of information online for the majority of Myanmar. We urge a calm down. Thank you.
Okay, Crossfire.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would time ourselves. So 3 minutes start from now. You can have the first question.
I will have the first question. Okay.
Okay, then I will ask you a question. So could you, in your case, to talk about nationalism, could you please tell me how many people are killed, how many people are affected exclusively by the target advertisement of the use of person data?
Sure. So first off, we already given our dehumanization impact, but if you want more, according to Palm Reserve from the New York Times in 2018, more than 700,000 Rohingya fled the country in 1 year, and this is specific to our
okay.
nationalism, right?
So the question is, is that exclusively like because of the use of person data? I'm asking for exclusively. It's the only reason why people are just the problem of dehumanization is because of the.
Saying that we have to prove that's the only reason. I believe
yeah,
that's
because
burden of proof.
This is vague.
Major
You just tell me.
Right?
You just tell me people die, and actually they are just getting information from the platform. It's not necessarily mean these two have your correlation. What?
Sorry, can I please clarify? There is actually correlation. According to Kinza's evidence that we read in our third subpoint, right? She's an international human rights and humanitarian lawyer. For Facebook is the only source of information for the majority of Myanmar.
Only source. Majority? How many? Just tell me the percentage. How many Myanmar people are actually all of the information coming from?
For 14 million Myanmar citizens. And if you want even more explicit, this is according to a study about Singha nationalism, like after wearing Sehe, which is a major parasocial influencer in Sri Lanka, posted on social media, like 3 days later, Muslim majority town of Daigana, which is the Pali district, and
does not prove that exclusively the use of person. Okay, you can have a question.
I mean, sure. If you want to claim that, you have to provide a card. We have. So you talk about how this does not lead to filter bubbles towards your thing about about search engines. Could you please clarify the link or like the dislink?
You're muted.
I'm muted?
No, your opponent.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? So the problem is that actually the filter bubble is actually because actually the advertisers are gonna pay money for the platforms in order to receive some disinformation about the candidates. But actually the algorithm will talk about collaborative filtering is not paid by other people, and it's the primary algorithm actually of the tech company. So I would like to argue for this. Can I have a question now? Because I've already answered your question. So okay, so all of your contentious topic of filter bubble, could you please tell me, like, does people have the freedom to log out of the system? Because talk about target advertisement, they have the freedom to log out of the services, right or not?
Look, so we don't buy your premise. You're talking about how these people could just distance themselves from the filter bubble just by logging out of the system. First off, we tell that's impossible because Google actually tracks their IP and uses it personally based on this. So even if they log out, it doesn't matter. And secondly, we tell you that—
Do you have evidence for that?
Yeah.
Like only for Facebook? Only for Facebook? Only for Facebook, this platform, right? Okay, I think time's up, or
time's up.
Okay, thank you so much.
Can I have 1.5 minute prep time? Thank you.
Okay, 1 minute and 30 seconds, time's up.
Okay, so I will start my speech from now. The framework is prioritizing dehumanization as the main impact on their side, which means if you're going to prove that filter bubble is going to undermine the significance of people, then they can win. However, we're going to tell you only a small proportion of people will be having the possibility of being trapped in filter bubble, and actually filter bubble is minimizing the negative impact that those extreme people will have on the entire society. First of all, we tell you that filter bubble is definitely not unique for the use of personal data, because there are a variety of other ways that information and source could be influencing people. They never have provided any evidence that how though exclusively the use of personal data alone contributed to the rise of extremism by which percentage, would tell you that environment where people live in will have a bigger influence over their ideology rather than social media. Since in all their evidence, the extreme people are mostly the young people. Take the example of Hong Kong's case. Their ideology was already determined through their education, so it's really hard to see what social media's role in it. And our opponents fail to quantify their impacts. Political analyst Lam, who teaches at Chinese University of Hong Kong, directly commented that to some extent, liberal studies awaken those young minds to view what is joining the protest, and you can achieve some change. And the liberal studies class reviewed why criticism that students could be swayed from political beliefs or their teachers. And we also tell you that we also tell you that collaborative filtering directly cross-applied to students' contention, since the algorithm was proven to be encouraging more diversity and information intake. Secondly, we tell you that polarization within the country could also be driven by the exposure to the viewpoint that people actually disagree with, rather than being separated from them using filter bubbles. Christopher Bale from Duke University recruited thousands of Democrats and Republicans, paid them to follow a Twitter bot that would retweet the contents from the opposite side. And after a month of exposure, the Democrats retained almost the same. However, the Republican ended more conservative than when they started the study. This finding actually falsifies our opponent's claim, because there are a variety of ways to interpret conscience data. It could be that the participants are actually reacting to content, the messages that they are exposed on social media, but it could also be the case that they are simply responding to the messengers, not the message itself. Thirdly, we tell you that user choice might be influencing the situation than the algorithms more, because platform gap had already been identified as a safe haven for right-wing extremists, and they have been exploited by terrorists. However, Global Research Network and Terrorism Technology paper number 8 noted there is no evidence that GAP's algorithm promotes extreme content. So user choice rather than filter bubble effect influences the environment more. Similar for YouTube, simply that algorithm can prioritize extreme contents doesn't offer explanation to whether users' choices actually play a vital role. And lastly, we told you that companies actually are paying more attention to manipulated contents, because Twitter had already banned all the political advertisement, and Facebook had already created greater freedom to opting out of the micro-targeting ads. And secondly, and we also tell you that their impact is actually covering only a minimum group of people, because as a study, according to University of Ottawa's 2018 study, it was found that more than 92% of respondents expose themselves to viewpoints in a variety of ways, from passively encountering information that they disagree with to actively checking multiple sources or using those media to verify information. So greater interest in politics will also reduce the likelihood of being caught in an echo chamber. And for the entire media environment, there's little apparent echo chamber. That means that only an estimated 8% of people are likely to be trapped in the filter bubble, which means they actually minimize their impacts. And let's compare a situation where there's no filter bubble, where all the people are able to spread their hate speech in the scope of all society, or compare a situation where they are only speaking to the people who have homophily opinion with themselves. We actually observed that in a mean of hate speech, actually filter bubbles stop the spreading and slower spreading of these kind of viewpoints, and actually it might be apparently slightly better for the situation compared to no echo chamber. And we also tell you that for the speech on the platform, we tell you that on December 2017, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Microsoft set a partnership with the United Nations Counterterrorism Committee and a range of organizations and the tech companies have already identified how best to counter extremism and online hate. YouTube has long prohibited videos that promote violence or hatred against people based on their age, religious beliefs, gender, religions, and Facebook also bans white supremacy.
Okay, time is up. Thank you very much.
Ideologies. Thank you.
All right. Judge ready? Opponents ready? So my time would start now. First, let's look at their first contention when talking about privacy, including recommendations. Basically, it's telling you at first, privacy is protected, and second, that companies and consumers are benefiting from it and they're gaining satisfaction. A couple of responses. First, we tell you, according to techbeacon.com, 4.1 billion number of data records were comprised during just the 6 months of 2019, and 70 million data records were stolen or leaked in 2018 due to poorly configured cloud storage bucket that directly counters against any information to talk about how the tech companies are actually securing their privacy or helping out their companies and consumers. And the total breach in U.S. companies is $8.19 million. Answering to how they're going to benefit companies when they're talking about an 85% increase, right? In fact, American companies alone are estimated to have spent over $19 billion in 2018 acquiring and analyzing consumer data, according to Interactive Advertising Bureau. which basically means instead of saving companies money, companies from tech companies are actually spending more money towards it. And when they talk about the surging revenue saving $75,000 per person, we just don't simply think that data is applicable towards a real scenario. We would like them to further elaborate on that. Subpoint B, they talked about how satisfaction can be gained through metadata. First, we tell you that it's non-topical because when telling you metadata, it proves that their argument is itself not about personal data. And second, even if under their scenario, we still win. Why? Because Amazon, for example, Amazon.com is riddled with ads, specifically pop-up ads, that each prompt the user to buy another product based on the user's unique purchase history. Not only are these ads annoying, but they also drive users to make unwanted and perhaps unbudgeted impulse buys. And while 84% of all shoppers have made impulse buys at one point or another, it may be easier to do on Amazon since it invests heavily in exposing shoppers to new products at every step of their Amazon experience. What does that even mean? That their so-called satisfaction is actually luring the consumers to buy things that they innately don't want to buy and trap them into these stacks. Moving on to their second contention, talking about healthcare. Don't be confused. There's only 2 points within their argument. The first one is about EHR, saying how they're trying to solve the medical errors. And the second point is about the pandemic. Let's first move on to their first point, right? According to TheGuardian.com, Google's medical data includes names and full details of millions of 50 million Americans expressed anger to The Guardian that patients are being kept dark about the massive deal. In 2017, the transfer of 1.6 million patient records at the Royal Free Hospitals in London to the company's DeepMind Health was found to have an inappropriate legal basis. Nearly 32 million records have been exposed this year, more than double the number for 2018. It's no surprise the high level of medical records on the dark web has surpassed that of Social Security and credit card numbers. These records can sell up to $1,000 online depending on the completeness of the information contained. What does that even mean? That means further, it's constituting towards identity theft, tax fraud, home equity loan fraud, and also directly being sold on black market where, for example, human trafficking or babies and weapons are being sold on. So we don't see how the healthcare system is actually helping out at all, but instead putting the patients in danger of being captured by, for example, frauds. Second, we tell you about the data breach. Surveyed by California Healthcare Foundation found that 19 out of 21 health sites had privacy policies, but most failed to live up to the promises not to share information with third parties. Protected health information breaches affected over 113 million individuals in 2015, comprising nearly 99% attacked by these breaches. Specifically, 51 hacking incidents involved in EHR directly contraring their evidence, and that one hacking incident affected 3.9 million individuals' health information and 17,000 patients' records are breached per day on average. We don't see how their advocacy is sustainable at all. Third, we tell you about racism. Millions of black people are affected by racial bias in healthcare algorithms. The black people were less likely to be referred to programs that provide more personalized care, and only 17% of patients that the algorithm assigned to receive extra care were black, which compared to 45% were unbiased. Four, we'd say it draw harms to the hospital. Why? Because 45% of healthcare organizations are attacked because of motivation by data destruction. So the more data to collect, the more destruction healthcare is about to experience. It's a strong combat. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I take 20 seconds per time?
Sure.
I'm sorry, which side are you?
The pro side. So my time will start now. My question is that for LGBT societies, the increasing interaction within the community actually creates a security zone for them from the environment. So is filter bubble always bad thing?
First of all, we're not just talking about this bubble because uniquely put it, we use these, for example, the extreme groups rig those algorithms in their favor. We're not just saying that we're creating this echo chamber, which is on a massive scale. Our contentions are specifically targeted to the part where, for example, the extreme group use personal data to, for example, recommend those people with those things instead of
So you're saying, So you're saying basically like instead of tech companies, those extreme people, they're using personal data.
No, I'm saying that
people.
Can I?
Yeah.
You're mistaking my argument. So what we claim is that extremist groups, for example, use the YouTube algorithm, also the Twitters, and also the Facebook to use their own algorithm to put in those data so that they can receive, for example, the nationalist content. So we're not just saying that, for example, you have a political campaign preference, which is half of your rebuttal is about how, like, for example, Google and Twitter shutting down their political campaign ads, which is not even relevant to our case. But
okay, I have already proved to you that hate speech on Facebook as well as like white supremacy contents are already banned on those platforms. So how large specifically is your impact?
My impact is huge, about 200,000 tweets in Sri Lanka and 4,000 bots. If you're saying that they're already banned, tell me why those evidence even exists in the very first place. If, for example, the political, let's say like the nationalist contents are innately banned, right? When we talk about the algorithm being, like, for example, biased and rigged, it means that the company no longer has control over how much contents that they can take down. If you're saying that they can shut them off, or saying that the algorithm is innately already corrupted and it's not in tech companies' control anymore.
So comparing to a group of racists and algorithms, so whether it's easier to change an algorithms comparing to change a group of people that have their deep-rooted like bias in their thoughts?
We're just saying that we're not trying to change the people. The thing is, with this argument,
we're only arguing that there is a possibility to shift algorithms.
No, I understand your concern. The problem is that by using this algorithm provided by those tech companies, simply because they use personal data to build this algorithm, it's providing those extremes with chance to spread their ideas. If I'm an extremist, I only live in my own circle. I don't have a huge platform nationally for me to spread my extreme ideas. That's exactly why we strongly negate that the tech companies should do that in favor of like everyone.
Okay, you can have your question.
Yeah, sure. So why don't we talk about the satisfaction thing? So do you think that data breaches affecting over, well, we listed 113 million people, a satisfaction for those consumers, since that their data is being sold on black market for $1,000 per information?
And the data breaches decreasing from time to time. We should not prove that like in the past there's no data breach and any security incidents.
Sorry, time.
And sorry, I want to cover prep time. Okay, just stop. Thank you. So I'm gonna time myself. Okay, so 3-minute summary speech start from now. Judge, before we answer the question you run, firstly, I would have several clarifications for today's debate. First, we never advocate for metadata. The algorithm which is collaborative filtering is different from target advertisement, because target advertisements are those advertisements that deliver to users because advertisers pay social media money, which means they are manipulated. However, collaborative filtering recommend content automatically by the system to users based on their behavior, and they are not represented users because they were not just cause of problem consumerism, because this is not target advertisement. We also like to summarize whole debate into two main clashes. Clash one about saving human life. Both teams agree on the human life over anything else. Okay, first we talk about nationalism and polarization. We'd like to give you three responses. One, social media is only one of the sources of the news feed of every individual. There are other ways to know actually the information. For example, political websites, newspaper, offline magazines. Two, 92% of respondents passively encountering information had disagreed and counter their current thoughts. Three, evidence is showing only 8% of consumers are trapped in the filter. Two, we talk about extremism and terrorist attack. We would like to argue first, like non-unique. The problem is not unique because people previously already had those thoughts at the first place. Not the tech companies is not to blame. Two, we talk about in Hong Kong case, their ideology was determined mostly through their education, but not driven of recommended contents. We would like to argue that evidence is not representative because all of the evidence talk about live killing and it's not exclusively due to the echo chamber. They have the burden to prove why are actually they're actually like all of the people like they're just attacked for real attack because of the exclusively because of the use of personal data of the target advertisement. My opponents did not actually rebut our contention to talk about healthcare benefits. They only tell you data breaches. We tell you like one, first, no incentive for them to leak out people's personal data because firstly, the tech companies will lose all of their money from the advertisement market because of the data breaches. Two, law enforcement will have exclusively and more strict enforcement to enforce healthcare data. All of those technology providers must comply to high-tech HIPAA in a security rule by 2050. The organizations that do not upgrade EHR on time receive fine. If they do not upgrade encryption methods on them in their company, they will just receive fine and heavily fine. We tell like our opponents' impact because they totally drop our contention talking about coronavirus. My opponents give no response to this contention. However, we tell like because we live in a coronavirus and their coronavirus are just undermining our lives, and we tell like 1,500 million searchers and find out 80,000 people who have been in contact with, and we are just quarantining those people. And actually, this shows a great impact in society. Clash societal impact. My opponents talk about consumerism. We are telling you collaborate both will not lead to the problem. Two, we talk about like we tell like the algorithm will help recommenders to be to have a life-saving impact. Always my opponent's life-saving impact. Thank you.
Okay. Oh wait, sorry. Can I take 30 seconds breath first? So is everyone ready? If so, the time will start. Starting with the framework, our opponents already concede our framework that we should value saving lives over everything else, right? But they have not actually responded to our Montagan evidence card that actually talks about how these esteemed scientist professor from the University of Hawaii says that the extent of destructive toll of dehumanization is already greater of any war, plague, famine, or natural calamity on damage to the quality of human life. Fabric of civilized society is beyond calculation, therefore has the greatest impact in this debate, which means that even if we don't win any of our points, as long as we can prove this one impact, then we will win the debate. Starting with the first clash in the debate, which is filter bubbles. Our opponents first talk about how filter bubbles are actually good because it leads to targeted ads, which is good because it improves user experience. However, first off, we have already proven in the rebuttal how these targeted ads are actually bad, leads to impulsive buying things that you don't actually want, that leads to negative customer experience. And even if you don't buy that, our entire case is based on filter bubbles. We tell you why it's bad because it actually leads to increased racism in these areas. So our opponents contest us on our evidence. However, first off, we've provided three distinct case studies in the West, in Sri Lanka, as well as in Myanmar that explicitly state that it is that their use of social media, tech companies use of personal data that leads to this filter bubble that actually leads to radicalization. Our opponents say that just because of filter bubbles, you can't change someone's mind. And they raise this Hong Kong counter example about how it's all about education, right? To have their own personal views. However, we're not saying that we're changing their views. We're saying that we're radicalizing these people for them to become more racist, for them to become much more harmful, right? Our wearing Say Hey card explicitly states, this is from Sinhala nationalism, that after 3 days after Sri Lankan parasocial influencer wearing Say Hey posted on his social media about how Muslims are really bad, like a group of mobs descend on the Muslim based town of Daigana, which is in the Kani district in Sri Lanka, and basically completely destroyed it. They have no evidence towards this, which is why we win this as well. They then talk about how we don't have specific evidence stating how this actually directly leads to. However, if you don't even buy our brains, the evidence explicitly states that. We even have evidence talks about how algorithm influence operation through bots that can reach in Sri Lanka, as well as our cards from Hadatua, as well as from Francois Jake, which talk about how these people in these third world countries are very easily influenced because they take social media mainly as a primary source, which leads to far more influence. You talk about how we don't have concrete impacts, we only have theoretical impacts. However, that's not true. We have already stated that over 700,000 Rohingya have left the country, and that more than 24,000 Rohingya have died in Myanmar. Now onto healthcare. Our opponents talk about how healthcare is good. However, this actually leads to major data breaches. Over 32 million people have their data exposed, and 99% are attacked, and 51% are hacked. This has a major impact. Our opponents do not actually rebut this. And now finally, onto the pandemic argument. Our opponents talk about how this use of personal data leads to pandemics being solved. However, this is not true because we have a Hong Kong counterexample that says that Hong Kong uses the same personal data tracking device as China does. However, they are failing, and other counterexamples such as Japan, Singapore don't actually do this, and they're still succeeding in combating coronavirus. Strong call ballot. Thank you.
Whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, so our time start from now. First question: are Facebook the direct reason that Rohingya people are excluded, not because of their own cultural backgrounds?
So you're asking us whether Facebook is the main reason why this Rohingya exodus is happening?
I'm asking you whether it's a direct reason.
Yeah.
Instead of their own cultural biases and their own cultural background.
Because you only give the example of a Hindu minority, but never talk about like the people in the other region. You only talk about which means you have a restricted impact of the only limited to the Hindu minority, right?
Question if you actually let me answer that question.
So first of all,
Okay, you can answer.
can I answer your question? Thank you.
Yes.
When we're talking about the Facebook scenario, why do we specifically say this region? Is because in this region, your only source of information is Facebook. That's a very specific case that's been listing, for example, the West Sri Lanka and Myanmar. We're saying that in those specific regions, because they don't have other sources, that's, for example, your own rebuttals is talking about how other sources of
So
information.
you're saying that in Myanmar, there's no newspapers, there are no other websites,
No,
and
we're
there's so
saying that
large
Facebook-
internet connection that everyone will have Facebook for their
the one
information
that
source.
introduced information towards that piece of region. That's exactly why it's limiting their own scope of views. You can't view them as a people who are global citizens because they're simply not receiving the kind of information that you do right now. Okay?
Okay, you can have your
Why don't
question.
we ask a question? So in terms of your contention too on for example, on security increasing by 55%, tell me how medical errors can be reduced simply by implanting your data from paper.
Okay, when you're transferring your medical history data,
Talk about EHR system. Okay, we're gonna talk about EHR system, which are gonna reduce the medical error rate by 88%. Why? Because actually the doctor can only work on his or her own experience, but with the help of the electronic analysis and the electronic alerts, they can cross out medical errors out.
Sorry, Conan, but tell me how exactly this works, because first we told you that it's causing racial bias towards Black people, with only 14% actually gaining the cure. And second, with EHR system, what's the difference between moving?
Okay, sorry. Why have the systems have to know whether you are Black or white when you're inputting your medical history? Why does the system want to?
You're saving life, right?
Yeah, but we already see racial bias happening because personal data is used in EHR. You can't
we tell you that in EHR, your own race is not required really to be inputted into the system.
Tell me,
you cannot say you are Black.
We still save human lives, even if the racial problem. What?
No. You should stop listing assumptions that racial factor is not considered, because we give you part directly saying that in the EHR system already being influenced are the Black people. At least give me a card, or like, let's just stop raising assumptions. It's not fair.
So what are the cards you are asking for? What?
I'm asking cards why racial personal information is not, specifically that portion is not collected, but other portions are collected.
Okay, so I'll use it on my prep time.
Okay, time's up.
Okay. So my time will start now. Our opponents keep on emphasizing the vague impacts in today's debate, but cannot prove about a direct causation of their entire contention. And we have already told you that all their claims are basically not unique because it cannot prove that it is exclusively the fault of social media. And we have already proved to you why people are also always constantly exposing them to a different source of information, which will actually prevent the formation of filter bubble. And besides filter bubble, there's also a lot of factors that can actually be impacting their ideology, which means they actually cannot prove about a direct causation for their entire contention. And we have already proved how tech companies are banning those hate speech information as well as biased information on a platform, which means we can see a positive trend towards the future where the social media will be a more regulated place. And our most important voting issue is enhancing healthcare system, because we base our contention on a clinical support system which intelligently filter and present information at appropriate times, which is empowered by various medical tech companies and under compliance of HIPAA to protect consumers' privacy. The only rebuttal I see in there's discrimination, however, is it only individual case or the general picture. And what are the incentives? They said none. And the benefits are also specifically provided by the use of person data, because overall it will be reducing medical error by 55% because it prevents the possibility of the medical history data from being distorted in the process of transporting the data. Also, we bring 52% decrease in hospital readmission, which hugely reduced the risk of infection, as well as a 50% drop in the sepsis mortality rate. And we are decided to prioritize and care about human lives because both of the sides actually agree on that we are judging it on whether we should be prioritizing human lives and dehumanization. We told you that loss of lives is actually the most vital impacts in today's debate. Okay, so that's why we should win. Thank you.
Okay. Judge, ready? Ready? My time will start now. The reason why we win today's debate is because our framework dehumanization outweighs any single impact in today's debate that cause war, plague, famine, and outweighs all their impacts. The link is really, really simple. Nationalists manipulate the algorithm that tech companies have by using personal data and exposure of more to hate speech and hate crimes, causing district riots. When they asked us for exclusive direct causation, it's directly what we've been saying for our whole case. Why? Because they only take social media as their own major source of info. For first, West, 2, Sri Lanka, 3, Myanmar. We use 3 companies example, first Facebook, 2, Twitter, 3, YouTube. They never directly countered any single piece of our evidence. Don't let them get away with that. What we're trying to talk about is personal data creating the recommendation algorithm and how it's a weaponization of a social media, how it's 200,000 tweets and our Facebook still hasn't found a way to keep all the toxic and manipulative content from spreading, and its unparalleled price makes it particularly powerful tool, which results in 1,100 ISIS accounts, and how the Sinhara National killed over 4,100 people. We do believe that this evidence of how people are being killed outweighs all of their impacts of potential increases, right? Let's count their impacts. When they talk about how medical errors are being decreased, when they talk about reducing mortality, how much percent of it directly comes from EHR? EHR is only something that's going to do with data breaches and help you spread your information on dark web to sell. There's no direct correlation. The people that hospitals are saving still go directly to hospital, not to EHR system. Moving on to the whole case, we first talked about how 70 million data records were stolen. 2, the companies spend 19 billion analyzing consumer data. There's no win-win scenario for nor the consumer nor the tech company, because 84% of all shoppers have impulsive buys. They don't even want them. Moving on, we talked about how they're in their contention too that 1.6 million patient records from Google are being stolen, and how this medical records sold to dark web by $1,000 and causing identity theft and fraud, and how the data breaches is affecting racism of 70% of Black people. We don't see any positive influence coming directly from personal data collected. It's a strong con ballot. Thank you.
say to Khan that although your case was very well argued, I don't think your case actually helps your side. I think you would have easily won with a regular case. It was very harsh to see how separated this debate became because it was your nationalistic contention and all the other contentions. So to me, like I would have preferred like if well, this is just a personal preference, but I still think you argued very well. So I won't go too much into that. Okay. There were some missing links on your side. For example, like how our company algorithm rigged by these local nationalists. I do not understand that. I didn't have evidence on that. I also didn't hear any evidence on how like social media is their only news source in these third world countries, while Pro was not able to provide countering evidence. So I guess I just have to believe you. Because of these missing links, you could not access all of your impacts. So I do not believe that all of the tragedies, all of the headcounts that happened in Sri Lanka and Myanmar actually are like solely caused by personal data. Also, I think that you can link your rebuttal speech to your case also to your dehumanization framework. I think that would make your strategy. To the pro debaters, I really appreciate your effort rebutting their nationalism contention using like multiple lines of reasoning. I know that like it's obviously very challenging as you didn't have any like direct counter evidence. So I just really want to appreciate for your effort. Okay, that's all for me.
Thank you, Judge.